Шушинская тюрьма построена...
Shusha prison was built in the 19th century. All over the Soviet period, the most dangerous criminals from the republics of the USSR were brought here. When the Azerbaijani city of Shusha was occupied by Armenian armed forces in 1992, the prison was turned into a place for terrible torture of Azerbaijani prisoners of war and civilians.
Проведение страшных пыток над азербайджанскими военнопленными.
A two-story building with high-end thick fences, huge gates, and a total capacity of 350 people, Shusha prison deserves special attention for its visible presence in the urban space, unique architecture, and place in history. It was built during the period of Tsarist Russia at the expense of the famous Azerbaijani poetess, daughter of the last Karabakh Khan Khurshid Banu Natavan, and functioned as a close correctional institution for many years. After the occupation of the city of Shusha, Armenian militants mercilessly maimed and killed Azerbaijani prisoners here. Thousands of lives were lost within these walls.
From 1848, almost, this place was built as a prison, and it has always been used as a prison non-stop. So this is the first time that it is not used as a prison this year after the liberation of the Shusha. And over these years, especially what's happened during the occupation of the Shusha, that the Armenian, they have used it as a prison. There have been a lot of incredible stories about the people, Azerbaijanis that has been here. And the most important thing is that they were doing a lot of torture here. You can find a lot of Azerbaijanis that has been tortured here and spend years and years in these places. That's why showing this place and bringing the attention to what's happened here, it's very important.
It's terrible to remember how we were treated and in what conditions we were kept. Sometimes I didn't even want to leave. Every day spent in the Shusha prison, I thought about death, which could save me from all the torment. Prisoners were tortured by gods for their own pleasure. They didn't even try to get any information. Apart from the prisoners of war, there were also civilians, old men, women, young girls and children who were also tortured.
Not everyone could withstand strong psychological stress and harsh treatment. Depression of the prisoners drove them crazy. Nevertheless, there were those who could withstand all of the horrors and return home. Azerbaijani soldier Famil Aliyev was a participant of the First Karabakh War. Having gone to the front in 1992, he could not even imagine that on the 2nd of January in 1994, he will be captured by the Armenians and put into a prison where he spent 343 the most terrible days of his life.
It was unprecedented hatred towards Azerbaijanis. We were told Azerbaijani means an enemy. At that time, Armenian nationalists had already committed several acts of genocide against the Azerbaijani people, including that in the city of Khojaly. The guards in the prison liked to talk about it with pride, thereby putting a lot of psychological pressure on us.
According to former prisoner Famil Aliyev, the Armenian servicemen who were responsible for maintaining the prison didn't take seriously any international organizations, not even the International Committee of the Red Cross. They rejected the principles of humanist ethics. International organizations themselves became interested in the situation in more details only after the conclusion of a ceasefire agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan in 1994.
The guards were taking us outside to beat. We were beaten with a crowbar, rebar, mount, everything that came to hand. Hitting with batons no longer seemed like something terrible. I remember when they first brought me to the prison. I had 12 shrapnel wounds in my leg. Without anesthesia, the fragments were removed and my leg was bandaged. When my leg healed, the commandant came and pulled out my 2 big toenails. I lost consciousness from the pain. Almost every day, prisoners were taken to other occupied regions of Azerbaijan, where they were forced to work at construction sites.
In my youth, I have been also in prison. I have been tortured myself over 3 years in different prisons. So when I'm coming here, when I'm looking to other places, it's bringing me also my personal memories, and I know exactly how the life was difficult here, especially when you see the places which not only they were sleeping, but also the way that they have been treated. I have talked to a lot of prisoners here before, and the stories brought me personal memories. So that's the reason I really would like to come here and photograph. I looked at every wall, every door, everything. It's brought me a personal memory. So it's very emotional for me to enter here after the Shusha was liberated and seeing that the places was almost, I can feel the cry, I can feel that this sorrow of those people that has spent all years here, and it is quite impressive, this place. I mean, the monument, the architecture, it's really, really built to bring down the prisoners, to make them humiliated, and every single place has this memory of what's happened here. Well, you know, I was the first journalist into the Shusha after the liberation.
And you decided to come here also?
One of the first places, because I have heard a lot the Shusha prison over 30 years, and a lot of people were telling the stories that were so incredible that that's why one of the places that I wanted to come and visit here just after the liberation was prison. And when I entered here, it was even worse than what I ever thought about it, because over 40 years in many other countries during the wars or after wars, I had occasion to go and photograph the different prison. But this one especially, it's really impressive. And I don't know, in 1848 when they built it, they knew exactly
how it will be used.
How it will be used, and they used it. But what I heard, what's happened during the occupation, it's even worse than all the stories of how it was during the Soviet Union here.
You are, as a professional photographer, you say that you took many photos in this prison. Probably there is 1 or 2 pictures you would like to highlight mostly, like what it's important to show to the international community, for example in France, that will grab the attention of the people from this place.
I mean, again, the architectures, but also the way that the people were treated, the place that they were sleeping. I mean, you can see the iron beds, which is almost as narrow as a person. So it's 60 centimeters, and it means that you were not able even to move when you were sleeping, and spending years and years in this kind of the iron bed itself is a torture. So the torture was not only done in the torture places. In this prison, every single place, even the place which like a bathroom that they use it's a kind of torture that you can find it here. So it's one of the most incredible, and I will say against the humanity, this place that were used over 30 years.
In winter, barefoot and practically without clothes, we were taken out into the snow and forced to chop wood. I remember how during the rain they put a chain around my neck and tied me to an iron grate in the yard, forcing me to bark at passers-by like a dog. In the morning, we were taken out into the yard and lined up. Walking along the rows, the warden could get a knife and cut off one of the prisoners' ears. I got to such a state that I decided to commit suicide and passed 360 volts through my body. However, I didn't die. They took me to the punishment cell. It was a dark room measuring 2 by 2 meters. I stayed in it for a week. I slept on the wet floor. I was not given my water or food, and then the desire to live awakened in me. I drank water from the floor in order to survive. When I came out to the punishment cell, other prisoners asked me how I managed to survive. No one has yet come out of there alive. I answered them, I survived with God's help.
Famil Aliyev is one of the few prisoners who managed to escape from the Shusha prison and returned home just a day before he was to be executed.
I escaped from captivity during one of the trips to work in the Photographic region. A few days before, an Armenian in prison told me that on December 11, 1994, at 3 p.m. I would be executed. They planned to cut off my head. They had a rule. Those who were planned to be killed were constantly told, "We will kill you, we will cut off your head." They loved to tell the details. I knew that they would kill me, but God showed me the way, and I fled on the night of December 9th to 10th. After the liberation of the city of Shusha, I again came to this prison. For me, it was very difficult. I couldn't hold back my tears. I will never forget what happened to me there.
In the summer of 2021, the trial over Armenian militants Ludwig Mkartachan and Alosha Khosrovan, who tortured Azerbaijani captives and committed other heavy criminals in Shusha prison, was held in Baku. They were sentenced by the court to 20 years of imprisonment, with serving the first 10 years at a high-security indoor prison. After the liberation of the city of Shusha by the Azerbaijani armed forces in November 2020, the prison building is empty. However, all those who survived in the walls of the Shusha prison will never forget the atrocities to which they were subjected by the Armenian occupiers for one reason only: they were Azerbaijanis. The walls in which so many lives were ruined still rise in the eastern part of the Shusha fortress, but already at a time when Shusha itself is rapidly recovering. Infrastructure and new facilities are being built here. There is belief that peace and prosperity will have come to this land forever, and this building will never be used for its intended purpose again.